let's review for our first unit test. We're going to review. You have a homework that is actually called Unit 1 Review. So let's review for this assignment. First thing we're going to review is the wording. How do we write things? Let me give you guys two examples. I'm going to make two examples up right now. Let me give you guys two examples. And as a matter of fact, I will on the test, I will ask you, is this true or is this false? So let me make one of each. Let me write the intersection. I'm just going to write the intersection of, let's say, ray EF and ray JG is G. Let's say I have that. So I'm going to come up with two examples. The intersection of ray EF and ray JG is G. Let me come up with another example. Let's use planes this time. The intersection of plane EIF and plane, let's call this GJK is line EF. So the intersection of plane EIF and the plane GJK is the line EF. All right, let's see what these questions do. So for the first one, let me think of the ray EF. The ray EF, it's a ray that starts at E and I go through F. So I start at E and I go through F. Now the ray JG, I start at J and go through G. Now the intersection, I'm saying is point G. What I mean with that is that this point, because it's just one point, this point is the only point that is in both rays. Right? First of all, G has to be, in order for this to be true, G has to be in both rays, but then G is the only point that is in both rays. See the point G? It is in both rays to begin with. It is the only point that is in both rays. Therefore, I'm going to call this true. Now, for my second question, the intersection of plane EIF. If you look at the points EIF, if you notice my figure has a dark plane and a white plane. So EIF, those 3 points are on the white plane. So I'm talking about the white plane. That's the plane EIF. Now the plane GJK, this is the dark plane. So I said the intersection of EIF, so the white plane and the dark plane is the line EF. So let me think of the line EF. In order for this to be true, line EF has to be in both planes. Every point on the line EF has to be in both planes. And those are the only points that are in both planes. Let's take a look at example point F. Point F is on the line EF. Just that point is not on my dark plane. It's only on the white plane. Remember I said in order for this to be true, that entire line EF has to be in both planes. And also, that's the only line that is in both planes. Right? Every point on that line has to be in both planes. It is not true, right? Because the point F is not in the dark plane. Therefore, I'm going to call this false. Now, another thing you guys will review or you guys will practice because you guys will have on the test is midpoint. Find the midpoint of the line segment with the given endpoints. Now, the coordinates of a point, I now have an x and a y value. So for me to find the x value, let me take a look at the x value of my coordinates. I'm just looking at the x values of my coordinates. For me to find that, I'm just going to add those two values and divide it by 2. 8 plus 9. So I'm just looking at the x value. 8 plus 9 divided by 2. For the y value, I'm just looking at the y values on my coordinates. I'm just going to go -9 plus -1. I'm going to add the y values and divide it by 2. All right, so let's take a look. For the x value, 8 plus 9 is 17. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. I'm just going to say 8.5. For the y value, -9 plus -1 is -10. -10 divided by 2 is -5. That is my answer. So whenever you type it, don't forget your parentheses. Right? We're talking about the coordinates of a point. Don't forget the parentheses. And also, don't forget to type in a space after the comma. The only space. So let me emphasize, there's a space after the comma. All right, let's take a look at question number 11. When I see the first point, I can find the coordinates of that point. The coordinates of that point are -3, 2. When I see the second point, I can find the coordinates of that point. The coordinates are 5, 1. Now that I know the numbers, for me to find the x value, I'm going to add the x values of my coordinates. -3 plus 5, and now divide it by 2. Always divide by 2 on midpoint. For the y value, I'm just going to go 2 plus 1 divided by 2. All right, so for the x value, -3 plus 5 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So my x value is 1. For the y value, 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So those are my coordinates. Don't forget the comma in between the two numbers, and don't forget the space after the comma. So when you're given the two endpoints, it's easy to find the midpoint. Now, one thing you guys did struggle a little is what if I give you one endpoint, a midpoint, and I'm asking for the other endpoint? For right now, I don't know what the other endpoint is. So I'm just going to call it xy. I'm asking find the other endpoint, so I don't know what it is. Like I said, I call it xy. Now, one thing that I know is that if I add the x values of the endpoints, so -10 plus x, I'm adding the x values of the endpoints, -10 plus x, I divide it by 2, that is going to give me the x value of the midpoint. So that's going to help me to solve for x. I'm going to add the x values of the endpoints divided by 2, and that's going to give me the x value of the midpoint. Now to solve for y, I'm going to add the y values of the endpoints divided by 2, and that's going to give me the y value of the midpoint. All right, so let's solve for x. When I look at fractions, let me multiply, in this case, both sides by 2 to get rid of fractions. So I have that -10 plus x is equal to -16. So I multiply by 2 to get rid of the fraction. Now to get the x by itself, the minus 10, let me move it over as a plus 10. Don't forget to switch the sign. So I have that x equals negative 6. Okay, I solve for the x value. Now for the y value, let me multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of fractions. So I have that 6 plus y equals negative 4. To get the y by itself, the 6, let me move it over. Don't forget to switch the sign. Y equals negative 10. So my solution should be negative 6, negative 10. Now let's review how to measure an angle. I'm giving you guys a protractor with some rays, and I'm going to ask for a specific angle. The way I'm going to ask for it will be find the measurement, or find the measure of angle EOC. Let me connect my letters EOC. So I start at E, I go to O, and then I go to C. So then I know which angle I'm talking about. Now use the outside numbers only or inside numbers only. If I'm going to use outside numbers, I see 60 and 130. Subtract those two numbers. Since I want my angle to be positive, I'm going to start with the big number. So in this case, 130 minus 60. And that should give me 70. So the angle EOC is 70 degrees. Now, if you use inside numbers only, you should do 120 minus 50, and your result should be the same. So outside numbers only or inside numbers only. Do not mix and match. Now, one thing you guys did not struggle was something like write the name of each polygon. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to count the sides. Right? We can do it with our fingers, but since you guys cannot see how I point at the screen, I'm actually going to mark them. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 sides. So a polygon with 10 sides, I tend to call it decagon. Now for number 15, I'm asking if each polygon is concave or convex. So I'm going to think of the diagonals. That's when I connect corners. And with the exception of the sides, obviously. So I think of a diagonal there. I'm trying to think of any diagonal. I'm trying to find a diagonal that goes outside of the picture, outside of my polygon. I drew all my diagonals and none of them go outside of my picture. Therefore, this should be called convex. If one of them goes outside of the polygon, just one of them, it could be more than one, but as long as one of them goes out, I'm going to call it concave. When you type in your homework, remember when we deal with words, don't forget to capitalize the first letter. I know these were simple. You guys did pretty well in the previous quizzes. Now, question number 16. I'm asking here to solve for CE. I want to know the distance between C and E. I don't know how big DE is, so let me try to figure that out. The way I'm going to solve it is I look at the information. From B to D is 22. From B to E is 23. The difference in numbers is 1, right? Between 23 and 22, the difference is 1. When it comes to the measurement, the difference is the segment DE. So I know DE. I can solve for BC if I want to, but I don't need to. I'm just asking for the segment CE. I'm going to add those numbers, and I'm going to say that segment CE happens to be 12. Right, 11 plus 1 gave me 12. Now, question number 17. That one gave you a little bit of hard time. We have the points A, B, C, and D are collinear and positioned in that order. So let me draw a segment. I want to draw 4 points because it said collinear. I'm going to call them A, B, C, D. Now let me see what information I have. I know that AD is 112. The whole segment AD is 112. I know that AC is 9x plus 223. So I know something about AC. I know something about BD, something about the segment BD. And lastly, I know something about the segment BC. So I'm seeing what I know. I'm trying to come out with two equations, but the equations I'm going to come out with are, I'm going to look at measurement of segments, measurement of sides. I'm going to have one segment and it's equal to another equation such that the two segments are equal. So I'm trying to come out with two segments that are equal. I can combine AC plus BD. I'm going to combine AC plus BD. And I notice that gives me the entire segment. However, I'm using the segment BC twice, right? If I go AC plus BD, I'm using the segment BC twice, and I should only use it once. So let me subtract BC. So I only want to use it once, not twice. And this is the whole segment AD. All right, about AC, I know it is 9x plus 223. BD, I know, so I'm going to go plus 8x plus 230. Now minus BC, this is very important, minus BC. Your algebra teacher said when you subtract polynomials, remember they call it subtraction polynomials, you just go and change the signs of the polynomial BC. When you subtract, you just change the signs. So let me write this as minus 8x minus 179. When you subtract a polynomial, you just change the signs. When you write it down, you just switch the signs. And I'm going to say this is equal to 112 because that's AD. All right, the left side, I'm going to separate my side through the equal sign. The left side, I'm going to condense it. I'm going to make it smaller. Let me see the x's. 9x plus 8x minus 8x. So 9 plus 8 minus 8 should give me 9. So I'm just combining my like terms. Now 223 plus 230 minus 179. Do grab a calculator if you need to. 223 plus 230 minus 179 should give you 274. And I know this is equal to 112. Now I want to have the x by itself. I only have x on one side. So the 274, let me move it to the right. It's a minus 274. So I have the 9x is equal to negative 162. Right, 112 minus 274 is negative 162. Let me divide each side by 9. That way I get the x by itself. X in this case is negative 18. My question was not solve for x. I solved for x in order for me to be able to answer my question. The question here was find AC. Question was find AC. I know something about AC. AC is 9 times x plus 223. So I'm just going to go 9 times the negative 18th plus 223. And that should give me 61. Solve for x. I said two segments equal each other in order for me to solve for x. Once you solve for x, plug it in the equation that I'm asking. I said find AC, so use the value of x. Now here, let me give you guys two questions, but on the test, you could look at complementary. Remember, complementary are two angles that add up to 90. You could be looking at supplementary. Those are angles that add up to 180. Or you could be looking at adjacent angles as well. Remember, adjacent angles are angles that shared a side. Looking at number 18, I don't know what b plus 27 is. I combine those two, b plus 27, but I'm also going to combine it with the 300 that I have on the outside. So when I say combine, I'm basically adding b plus 27 plus 300. I notice that combined, they make a circle. Circle is equal to 360. So I'm going to say this is equal to 360. Let me separate through the equal sign. I'm going to combine my like terms. When it comes to b's, when it comes to letters, I only have a b. When it comes to numbers, I have 327. And I know this is equal to 360. To get the b by itself, let me subtract 327. Now 360 minus 327, that should give you 33. Let's take a look at question number 19. b and 38. Because of this 90 on one side, I know b plus 38 has to equal to 9. To get b by itself, let me subtract 38 on each side. 90 minus 38 should give you 52. Whenever you type in my homework, don't go b equals 33, just type in 33. Don't go b equals 52, just type 52. Just give me the number. On the test, it could be complementary, supplementary, or adjacent. Another thing we're going to be talking about is how to classify the triangle by the angles in the side. I'm expecting two names. Let's take a look at angles. I'm going to be looking at the three angles, so the three corners, but I'm focused on the biggest number. In this case, 90. The little box represents 90. The angles are 38, 52, and 90. So I'm focused on the biggest number, in this case, 90. 90, when an angle is equal to 90, we call it a right angle. So this triangle is going to be called right. Now let me focus on the sides. The sides are 7.1, 9.1, 11.6. All the numbers are different. Because they're all different, I'm going to call this scaling. Make sure whenever you type in my homework, capitalize the first letter of the first word, but not the second word. Looking at question number 21, solve for x, I see that I have all three angles of a triangle. So I'm just going to add everything. It doesn't matter where you start. I'm just going to do this as 9x plus 2 plus 75 plus 40. I'm adding everything. And we talked in class that the angles of a triangle add up to 180, always. Let me separate them to the equal sign. I see that I only have one x, one term that has an x, so I'm just going to copy it, 9x. Now the others, 2 plus 75 plus 40, add them up, 2 plus 75 plus 40, that should give you 117. This is equal to 180. To get the x by itself, the 117, I'm going to move it over. Don't forget to switch the sign. I have the 9x equals 63. To get the x by itself, let me divide by the number in front of it. So I get that 1x is equal to 7. Just type in 7. Don't go x equals 7, just 7. Now my last two examples. State the most specific name for each figure. Remember, I call this section special quadrilaterals when we review this, when we learn this. If you need to review special quadrilaterals, check out my video for special quadrilaterals. Now, question number 22. Those arrows mean parallel. The top and bottom are parallel, but the two at the sides are not. just the one on the top and the bottom. So, matter of fact, they have different length. So I'm going to call this trapezoid. Looking at question number 23, I noticed that all the sides have the same length, right? 13.2. The angles don't, but the sides do. Therefore, I'm going to call this rhombus. If you need to review special quadrilaterals, do review special quadrilaterals.